Hello, YouTube audience. Welcome to another edition of Joe's Politics 101. You know, this past week, we've seen a lot of stuff and heard a lot of stuff about the NRA and the guns. Before I get started on my subject, which is going to be about the NRA and their resistance to this ban on military-style assault weapons and the high-capacity magazine, I want to warn my audience that when I post these videos, I start them with the intent of limiting it to, 5 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever, but it never seems to work out that way for me. So in order for you to understand what I'm discussing and what I'm talking about, you probably have to bear with me on some of the subjects, because sometimes I kind of step off into another realm because they all tie together. This discussion that we're having in the nation right now about the high capacity military style assault weapons and magazines that are attached to them is it's a serious conversation. If you've ever been in the military, which there are millions of people out there who have been in the military, if you've ever been involved in any law enforcement, worked as a law enforcement officer or something, a security officer, then you probably understand clearly the purpose of trying to come to grips with this. But the whole issue is centered around the Second Amendment of our Bill of Rights, or our Constitution, however you want to do it. And people seem to want to play a loose game of interpretation of the Second Amendment. To me, unless my teachers in school misled me on how to read and understand things, and my experience over the years of growing older and wiser in this country or in our nation, unless in the interpretation has some hidden agenda in it or something that I haven't grasped, it's just one clear little paragraph. It says, if necessary, a well-organized military to protect the state. Now, in that nowhere does it discuss, taking up arms against the government or against individuals for any reason. It has nothing to do with any of that in any reason. It's there basically to support the government in the fact that if something goes wrong, or if someone invades our nation, that we may organize a militia to defend our state or our communities or our private properties. I've listened to quite a bit of stuff. Some little guy named Shapiro was on I think CNN, and his thing was about a tyrannical government. I don't think any of us that's viewing this, me making this video and you viewing this video, can ever say or have ever experienced any tyrannical behavior by anyone in the United States government. And for that matter, any state. Now, we do have some states that are getting borderline on that in the United States of becoming tyrannical governments, dictatorship type operations by some of the governors who just happen to be conservative Republican governors. But I don't want to get into that. That's a whole different day and a different subject. You know, I watched this guy, Alex Jones, I believe he is, some talk show radio host, which I haven't did any research on as of yet. I'm probably going to be doing that pretty shortly. But I watched him on CNN, on that CNN, that Piers Morgan talk show. And, you know, it makes you wonder. Here's a man who's advocating, talks about the Second Amendment. His behavior, his attitude, you know, refusing to allow the man, Piers Morgan, to interview him and ask him questions. He overtalked Piers Morgan during the whole interview, pretty much threatening him. You know, if I'd have probably, me being the host of the show, I'd have probably got up and told him, get your so-and-so out of my studio. I'd have put him out. But what shocked me was what he said when he got up in Piers Morgan's face, shaking his fingers, talking about 1776 will come back if you try to take our guns away from us. 1776. What was that all about? Do he know what that was all about? Do he know what the Revolutionary War was about? It is my understanding that the Revolutionary War really began based on taxation without representation. You know, people being overtaxed by Britain, which was the government governing our colonies, and we were dissatisfied with it. So the Tea Party they had in Boston Harbor led to those events that eventually turned into a Revolutionary War and ended with the independence of our nation, the United States of America, or well, the 13 colonies. This guy, Alex Jones, strikes me as having a mental problem. And the reason I say that is because, you know, he's talking about confronting our federal government if they put any regulations on firearms. Well, we wouldn't need regulation if people would take the Second Amendment as for what it is and not for what they want it to be. The Second Amendment does not give you a right to walk around with a handgun on your hip. It doesn't give you a right to walk around with a rifle strung over your shoulder. And it doesn't give you a right to shoot anyone. It's there to assist the government of your state, of your nation, in the event of something happening inside our nation or our country or our state. Aside from that, in your private home, your private property is there to protect you if you within that realm. If you can get to a gun to protect yourself. You know, as a former law enforcement officer and having a duty that sometime required me and my co-workers to serve warrants. We've had to enter houses where people had firearms, were in possession of firearms, and they were within their reach. But their reaction was not to go for that firearm. Their reaction was to try and protect themselves, not with the firearm or anything else, but physically. So the false pretense that a gun protects you is a, I guess you would say it's a false sense of security. A false sense of security often gets you killed or mutilated or injured. Guns do not protect you. People protect themselves. There's never a guarantee that you'll be able to get to that gun. I hear people talking about they sleep with a gun under their pillow. You're more likely to shoot your spouse or one of your children with that gun that you sleep with under your pillow than you are to shoot a burglar or someone who have invaded your home. I'm 11 minutes into this, so I'm gonna dub this part 1, and then I'm gonna go and start over, because the point I'm trying to get to is the false sense of owning a gun to protect yourself from imminent danger is a truly sense of false security. And I want to get into training, gun training, usage training, because they're talking about arming school teachers. They're talking about having all these people walking around with guns. And the NRA is the prime source of that information coming out. People need to understand on an individual basis, that what the NRA and these other pro-gun organizations and people like this Steve Alex are about. Common sense is a beautiful thing if you really pay attention to what common sense is. This is Joe's Politics 101. This is part 1 of my discussion on the NRA and its lying fallacy to the people who are supporting it with their dollars and cents. God bless you. God bless America. And have a good day. And I hope you'll watch parts 2 and 3 of this upon my posting.